Call a meeting to order for the record since we're on recording. Roll call.
Randy Mason.
Trey Krause.
Mark Saunders.
Jess Beringer.
Linda Kaufman. We have a quorum. All right, I sent the minutes out for the August 26th meeting. Any comments, questions? Motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We have some correspondence I want to talk about. Appreciate people actually coming to the meeting. We thank you very much. So that you know, we try and do this more informally. So as we get to topics, if there's things that you want to speak about, we don't wait till the very end when we're on a topic. However, I will say, because we're being recorded and everything, you need to come to the mic, address yourself, who you are, and go from there. But I'll call when there's time for questions. I got one letter. I'll just read it real quick because it's short. They were unable to make the meeting last month, they're unable to make this meeting, sorry. I agree with most other business owners that the 3-hour time limit on all meters hurt downtown business this summer. It certainly did not work as intended. We also do not need so many 30-minute spots off Rehoboth. This was talked about last year, but nothing was done. There's no reason for so many 30-minute spots on Baltimore, for instance. Adding scooter spots was also discussed last year. None were added on the primary, secondary streets. We need to encourage scooter use, especially for our employees, and that there were many nights in July and August where our employees had to park too far away due to lack of scooter spots. The city sold too many permits, and many spots should be added, especially in Baltimore and Wilmington. The city should also stop selling scooter permits to smaller motorcycles and any scooter over 50 cc's. They take up too much room and should be parking in the motorcycle area. So I'm going to just address that. We've already addressed the 30-minute spots. We've had the recommendation on last year. The city didn't take action on it. It's still on the recommendations going forward that they need to address the criteria for putting them in, removing some, adding them where needed, taking them out, and marking them better so that the public knows before they pull in that it's a 30-minute. So I think on that issue we've addressed it. Also, the additional scooter spots, we've recommended that. We've given locations specifically. The city hasn't reacted to that, so that will also be on our recommendations because we've covered those topics already for the second set of recommendations. And when it comes to the 3-hour, we're going to be discussing that shortly, so I'm not even going to address that at this point. So that was mine. Mark? Jess, whichever. Yeah, sorry.
The month before, we received a letter from 2 ladies on Dover Street, and they had enough issues that I called them and asked if I could come and talk with them. And we resolved really everything. The key one was that they interpreted the memo from the city when we all signed our license plate numbers and everything to get permits. They interpreted it as that they had to take 2 scooter tickets or permits, and they felt that they were being forced to buy scooters. So we cleared that up quickly. And they then moved into saying, okay, then if we don't use scooter permits, could we exchange one for a transferable, an extra transferable? And I explained how that system all works, that they felt that if they invited several guests in the evening, some of them would have to go and buy a pass for the day for that, and that there should be an evening rate, which we could discuss at some point. I don't know where you would go to buy an evening pass, but there is some sense to that in a way.
Because it's free in the evening in the neighborhoods.
Yeah, currently it's free.
Yeah, no, then I'm off on
You get a better deal
a
than that.
particular reason. I guess if they came before
Right.
5, okay. I would say that I left and everything was resolved and they were content.
Okay, good. And for the minutes, they live on Dover?
On Dover.
And in this case, they have an older house with no driveway. So that's what
But
influenced their feelings, I'm
I
sure.
stepped out of my parking mode to stand in the front and show them where they could work with the city and create a driveway into their property, which they had never considered. So I hope they follow through with that.
Good. All right, and did you want to talk about the merge report?
Oh, yes. Randy and I were both there at the commissioners' meeting, and one of the items that was presented was the new wayfinding report. And I thought it was very excellent, very well done, and it was exactly what we had recommended. Interesting, Randy and I looked at each other and said they had done it with the cooperation of the parking committee. I must have missed those meetings. I think we all did. But nevertheless, the final product, I think it would take a third of our problems away if it were instituted, and it seems like it's going to be fast-tracked to be instituted. So I would encourage you, if you haven't seen it, to see it, because it solves a lot of our
And it's on the portal.
It's on the
correct?
portal, right, absolutely.
Yeah, so I would recommend that anybody, because part of the challenges I know we've had with some of the changes that were implemented was that part of our recommendation was the signage and information program that needed to go with it. Some of the changes were in, the signage didn't happen, some of the information didn't go out. So that obviously led to some real confusion this year, so.
The other thing that came out with that presentation is that, I think some of you may have been there as well, that there were 3 different phases of it. And some of the commissioners were really trying to urge all 3 phases to go in at once, which may be a little difficult just financially and also time-wise. And I spoke with Commissioner Schlosser afterwards and tried to encourage her to at least try and get the first 2, which had to do with signs for vehicles and signs for pedestrians. That maybe the most expensive and third component, which was the entrance to the city, could be the one to wait. But rather than just push for one, to push for at least those 2, which I think would be very helpful for people moving around the city.
Okay,
It was a very all-inclusive program that they've offered. So, of course, it would be ideal to have it all done at one time, because it was from the parking permit areas right down to City Hall parking, with signs and very clearly laid out. And I thought
Timed zone meters.
yes, everything was explained, and I thought the signs were all done nicely, professionally.
The one thing that was not included, though, I believe, and it had to do with some of the real specifics for use of the meters. For instance, now that we have these pay stations, there were a number of signs that went up this summer that were really tall that said "Pay here," and if you happened to be on the right end of the street, you could look down the street and see "Pay here." But if you were at the other end and looking up, there was not a sign on the back side. And so I think that we need to, at least address with the city that we have some additional signage specific to parking issues. That's just one example. There were a couple of other little examples like that would not, I don't believe, be part of the wayfinder. So there's still room for some additional signage, though I know they're trying to eliminate some of the signs that we have.
Okay, good. Any other correspondence? All right, I want to break this up into 2 parts really today. One is to recap the meeting that we had with the Downtown Advisory Task Force, and Carol, thank you for inviting us to go, and then segue into permits. So originally, we had our goal going into that meeting, I think out of last month's meeting, was to get input on the permits, because we're sort of moving into the permits on extension of timing on them into maybe 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock. I mean, I don't think we determined a time. If you recall, when we presented that last year as a recommendation, it was met with opposition primarily from business owners who complained about that it would hurt their employees. We've had several discussions since then, primarily the fact that most employees start at 1 or 2 o'clock, and the permits are in effect up until 5 anyway. So it seemed as though the majority of employees had permits anyway. And so that was what we were really trying to get to. Unfortunately, the meeting evolved into everything about the 3-hour time zone and very little on that. However, I will say at the very end, when we were able to ask that question, I was there, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but overwhelmingly, most people were like, no, I don't think that's a big issue. So the extension of them didn't seem as though it was as big of an issue for employees on that group that was there. Now, remember, when it was presented as a recommendation last year, there was an audience full of people that almost spoke unanimously against it. So we have to balance the groups that we're talking to and who's speaking up and things like that. But we'll get to that eventually. But I do want to address the 3-hour. You know, one of our recommendations was to have Rehoboth Avenue, particularly the prime spots, limited to a 3-hour maximum. The concept and idea behind that is they're the most prominent spots. They're the ones where you want the most turnover. If you can park at a meter for 10 hours and go to the beach and just keep feeding the meter, then that space isn't turning over. So it's not an extra space for the customer who, you know, on a 3-hour time, you could get as many as 3 or 4 or 5 customers in that same space. We made that recommendation. It was to be implemented in conjunction with the other changes, which was some signage program that would say to people as they're driving down Rehoboth Avenue, you know, these are short-term meters, 3-hour meters. If you want to park longer, either to go to the beach or to, obviously this is all not on the sign, but you know, the implication is if you want to park longer to go to the beach or to stay and shop and eat and do whatever, these are the areas where the meters are longer, and this is where you should park and leave those spaces open. The signage never happened. The information campaign didn't happen. The implementation of the 3 hours, and at least based on those at the meeting, it wasn't well received. So, you know, I want to kind of chat about that first, and then we'll open it up to the audience. I think it's important to note that I'm not minimizing what was said, but there were 5 or 6 vocal people about it. I don't think it was the entire room. You know, when I kind of asked the question, there were some people that didn't raise their hand, and there were some people that were shaking their head no. So it wasn't a unanimous thing, but, you know, it was certainly vocal. So I'm going to open it up to you guys first, then we'll talk about it a little bit more. Just your impression and, you know, where we should go from here.
You want to go first?
I don't care. Jump in.
I'll give him we were at the meeting, Randy, and Trey was there also. I think that it was overwhelming from where I sat at any rate, that maybe the 3-hour idea was not a good idea. And that maybe we should go for 6 hours or something that would still keep people from staying overnight and staying forever there. They wouldn't spend the day at the beach, but 6 hours perhaps would give them more time to get in and get out and do the shopping and dinner and so forth. Like I say, there was very, very little that the meeting that was negative except the 3 hours. I mean, I thought that was 90% of the complaints was the 3 hours. So
Well, and I think the issue with this 3 hours was specifically the fact that you could not renew. Because in the past, we've had this 3-hour limit, it was just never enforced, and people knew that they could renew, and there's a way to get around it with the Park Mobile. If you put your quarters in first and then do your Park Mobile 3 hours later, you can do it from the beach, that sort of thing. Whereas and the whole 3-hour thing was hampered by the fact that there was not the signage or any information about it. And the fact letting them know where the alternatives were, that there had been a change with the 3-hour being enforced, and nobody knew that until the 3 hours was up and they couldn't renew. And so that created a lot of animosity. There absolutely was, I think, I would say there were certainly the vast majority, because not many spoke up about the fact that they did like the 3-hour. I can tell you that from my business standpoint and from others I've spoken to, there are businesses that actually did much better because of that turnover. Yeah, I know that the overwhelming of the ones who came to the meeting, they felt that it was not in their best interest. But I think that yeah, at this point, we have been hampered by the fact that we didn't have the signage and the information out there. And we probably have to consider what alternatives might exist and see if there's some compromise to both sides, because I do believe there still are two sides to it. Yeah, both with valid points. But absolutely, the vocal issue was the 3 hour without the ability to renew.
There's a lot of different businesses in our city, and there are those businesses that primarily get the most of their revenue from 10 to 6, and that's when the sun is out and that's when people are there. I can say that I had a pretty good summer, and I had more people come in, and I gotta tell you, at the meeting, I was not gonna stand up. I felt slightly bullied by the tone that was there, so I wasn't about to jump up and say, hey, you know what, I disagree. I had more customers come in and were shocked that they could come and find a parking space anywhere near. And you look out and it's full, but there was a turnover that was going on. And I have my customers coming from, Bethany and Ocean View or North Shores or Kings Creek or the Glade or somewhere, and they are coming in and they want to shop with me, and they find it extremely hard in the old day when you could take a time-lapse photography and hour 1 would equal hour 12 and the cars wouldn't move. It's like a log jam where I am, and I think there's also geographic. So there's different businesses. Restaurants have a different perspective than retailers, selling apparel. And I think the first block has a different perspective than the second and the third and the fourth. Same with Wilmington and Baltimore. So I had a very good season in terms of people coming and being able to get in. 30 minutes, I need them. I've got people that just drive in for alterations. I've got wedding parties. I lose wedding parties because they're afraid to come in and pick up their outfits because they can't find parking. And I think we have to balance a whole bunch of needs, and people who don't have a problem with it don't show up, and the people who do have a problem with it show up. So as Randy said, I think it's not unanimous, and I think we can tweak it in some way that everybody's happy and understand it's a give and take. And I think I love Monty. I mean, he's always one who can boil things down to the most simplest. He said, compromise is probably where the solution is. If it's extending it, another hour or so, then let's do that. But I think the turnover will help businesses, particularly in that first block, that primarily draw their income and revenues from that 10 to 6 period. And if you don't live in that block, you don't understand it. I don't live in the other areas and I don't understand it, but I've been willing to listen to anybody who comes to the meetings. I've walked around, I've asked people. I do my best to hear both sides. I wasn't in agreement with everything that went through, but again, we sat and we did a very good job compromising with the residents. The residents have got a big impact. The commissioners can turn around and do anything they want after our proposal. So I mean, there's a lot of like leeway here, but I want to understand. It wasn't just unanimous that everybody's there, and I felt at the Belmore, I was definitely not going to stand up and contradict.
Let me say one more thing, and then we'd like to have you talk. The issue actually goes beyond just even the meter time. And I had taken some pictures over the summer. Our business is in the 3rd block. And I had taken pictures of people taking all of their beach things with them, walking from the 3rd block down all the way down to the beach, where they could be closer if they went over a block or 2. They're walking 4 and 5 blocks to the beach. And Sunday, we were out walking the dog at 10 o'clock and out in front of the Jack Lingo office, which is quite a ways back. There, I have pictures of some people who are older than I carrying all their beach stuff down to the beach from that location, because what happens is people drive in, they see the beach, and they take the first parking spot that they see. So it's not just in the front blocks that's the issue. It is further back, and these people are going to be there for hours and hours and hours without using those businesses back there.
Just, do you have anything on?
I come from a resident's perspective, but dedicated our whole first year to the business interest because we knew it was very necessary. And I was rather pleased that we came with what we did, and it did create turnover. I can't justify in my own mind how 6 hours is going to help the situation. It's going to reverse the positives that we saw this summer. It's all about turnover. A good example, as you travel around, Chinatown in the DC area just went to, they didn't want to extend the hours. They raised the fee. It's now $7 an hour. And that has taken care of itself. So there's different ways to do this, and I don't think we want to play that game, not at all.
So there's a couple things, and and I want to hear from the audience, but it could be a compromise. Maybe it's 4 hours. Maybe it's someone has suggested, you can increase your time by an hour, but it should cost more. Keep in mind, I always hear what you say, Carol, is, make it simple, and we have to be careful not to complicate it. I am going to say this, and this is my parking hat. Meters are in place to create turnover. They are not a revenue source. Now, having said that, they're a huge revenue source for the city. I'm not arguing that. But the meters, the concept of a meter is to create turnover. It is not ever supposed to be long-term parking. Now, challenge we have in the city is that we don't have a lot of options for long-term. If we had, I'm not even going to get whether we're building a parking deck or not, but in my prior life, the idea was meters should always be short-term, enforce the feeding, get the people who are going to be there all day for a meeting or whatever into the parking garages. That's kind of the concept. What we need to do is adopt that concept and figure out how do we get people into other areas that aren't necessarily a parking garage. This lot is a good example. This lot could easily, I don't even know, did we enforce feeding on this? We didn't enforce feeding on this lot, did we? I don't remember, it doesn't matter. This lot would be a good alternative where if we advertised and said, you want to park all day to go to the beach, use this lot. Don't use Rehoboth Avenue. So I think there are ways to massage this if that's what we are still, looking to do. But the idea that you have a meter and you're not creating turnover, frankly, if it weren't for the revenue, I'd say take them all out and just make them permits. Because that's effectively what you're doing.
Can I just add a couple of things? Is we do have something else to consider. We have an alternate. We have the alternate of they can, at $3 an hour, for $18 they can buy a permit. That's equivalent to what, 6 hours? So if we had a 6-hour time limit, we could easily say to people, hey, if you're going to stay longer than 6 hours, buy the darn permit. We'd have an easy sale there. If they could stay for 12 hours, they could stay all day with the $18 permit. So I think that it sort of makes sense and sometimes to weigh once against the other. And hopefully with the wayfinding, people will be able to see the signs and say, hey, they'll be able to make sense of it. Say, look, if I'm going to stay all day, I can go to the neighborhood here and I can buy a permit for $18 rather than paying the same $18 for 6 hours on the avenue. And one more thing is I have to keep in mind with regard to my retail friends here that we do have an awful lot of restaurants in town. And I think it's probably true that 3 hours has probably not worked for them very well, particularly if you have to wait in line, which you do in many of them. You can wait an hour to get in, and then you only have 2 hours to eat and get out.
And the other thing that I heard is it absolutely did not work with those coming in to go to clear space. That was really
Especially if it was dinner and a show. Sure.
Yeah, so that was dinner and a show. So obviously something needs to change so that people can.
Well, and even where it is could be the change, because there are some restaurants at Rehoboth Avenue, but there's also some in Baltimore and Maryland and Wilmington, wherever that you could have longer. So I mean, I think there's some tweaking here, but
We could also stop the max at a certain time.
that's the other
That
thing,
might
is it
help
could be.
too.
So what I want to do is hear from the audience, because I know there's some people here. Understand we're wrestling with this. The recommendation will go forward once, I mean, we still have another meeting before we're going to finalize our recommendations. But I know that this is a passionate issue. I'd ask that, you kind of help us understand your point, but also understand that we're trying to create, I mean, our ultimate goal here was to create more parking spaces without physically building it. And that's what we're trying to do for the businesses. So having said that, anybody from the audience that wants to address it, come on up, make sure you give your name and business if you're here with the business so that we have it.
Okay. I'm Steve Fallon from Giddens Gadgets and Extended Play, 2 stores. 2 different clients, as a matter of fact. I think one of the things none of us have spoken about is that the main attraction to our town is not us. It's the beach. And the people are coming here for the beach. And then I've heard a lot of people say that the people that go to the beach are not their customers. I understand that. But I would think a majority of the people that come to that beach are our customers. And so I think that to try and confine these people to a 3-hour limit to go to the beach is just not going to happen.
Can I just
Sure.
say something? We're not confining those people to a 3-hour limit. We're confining those, I just want to be clear because it's frustrating, I keep hearing that. We're confining those people to a 3-hour limit in a certain section
I
of
know,
town.
But
Okay.
again, with all the flaws that have happened, without the anything, I mean, there's a parking lot behind Randy and I that is empty 90% of the summer, empty. And it's a 12-hour parking lot. It's $2 an hour, and all you have to do is have the app. I mean, there can be a number of things. I mean, there could be an app that's connected to all your meters that shows you the empty spots. I mean, there's really simple things that could be done to direct people to parking without the signage, I think. And the signage is definitely a plus. But to think that, and I didn't come here to bully you. I think that we all have our differences and we all have our pains of trying to bring people in. But the fact that I think that the biggest complaint from everyone, from all the business that we know that were at that meeting, and it wasn't, and I have to disagree with you, it was pretty much almost unanimous against basically one person who was in favor of that, which was Randy, and he admits it, which is good. So I think it was a friendly enough meeting, and I don't think anyone was beating anyone up, and was expressing their frustrations. That I closed my store an hour today to be here because and then I also took pictures, Randy, during the summer. There's a wide space between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock when the second street, or the second block, not the first block, the second block of Rehoboth Avenue, the third block of Rehoboth, has massive amounts of empty parking spaces. Why is that? They're not staying longer to experience the full Rehoboth experience. And that is besides going to the beach, to walk around, enjoy maybe a French fry, a soda, and maybe those are minimal to some people, but they add up at the end of the day with thousands and thousands of people. And so I think that it's not a small amount of money that we're talking about here when you add it all together.
And understand what I'm saying. I'm not being critical. I just want to make sure that everybody understands. Our recommendation wasn't to say we don't want beachgoers. Our recommendation was to say we want beachgoers or all-day parkers to be somewhere other than the main street.
I know, but that's the result, though. The result has been that. I know that was not the intention. No one probably makes that intention. I get it. But the only thing is the result has been that. And that I don't know if there's a clear thing. And to keep on trying to throw, water at this fire is I think is going to get even more detrimental, especially now that you're thinking of extending the meters to the end of September. I mean, the weekdays now are full of traffic, but that the off season or the September-October season really is determined by weather. And we happen to have a very good, very long couple of weeks of beautiful weather. If that weather changed to rain or any kind of inclement weather, we would have nobody. And then with meters, we'd have negative nobody. So I just wanted to say, to the extension thing is really something that's going to really add on to the existence of problems.
And I want to hear from but let me ask you something. So does 4 hours make a difference? Does extending it once make a difference?
I think these little things I think that's what happened here. They're just doing these little things here and there that are just like scratching at a wound, in my opinion. And I know there's lots of opinions, and I'm not going to say that my opinion's right. But scratching at a wound is really not going to, I don't think it's going to really help it. I think that the average beachgoer, like I think what he said was a 6-hour thing, is probably more logical than 4 hours, because again, we have to really include the beachgoer in this process, because if you drive into a town and you're not familiar with where you're going, you're not going to go wandering around all over town to find a place. And also, if you're going to add permits into that thing, the residents are going to start complaining that they're going to be going into the residence area. So it's not an easy fix. I get it. But I think the 3-hour thing is really has to be extended to a longer, somehow a survey to be done of the average beachgoer, or the average beachgoer that doesn't experience. I mean, I think there's been studies done, but I don't think they've been done fully enough to really be inclusive to everybody.
And do you think that with the signage, that would not be enough to let people know, go 2 blocks this way and it's only $2 an hour and 12-hour limit?
And closer.
I think it would help. I mean, for people that read those signs, there are people who read signs and people who don't read signs. And I mean, I clearly would tell people, there's a parking lot over there. I mean, and there's a number of things. The complication for the seniors with the meters. I mean, every day you walk down, there's another problem, blah, blah, blah. And so will they get the signage thing? I don't know. I think maybe an app or something, again, where it directs people to that thing because I think 90% of their people use their GPS, to get into town. They would probably then, if there was some kind of a knowledge of an app that directed people to somehow a satellite that would show the empty spots, or the meters obviously are connected to some network, have that network to show an empty spot somewhere along the line.
There are plenty of apps out there that can direct you to parking lots.
Right, exactly.
I mean,
So I think that would be a fix that I don't think I have heard addressed, and maybe that would help something.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm Jill Hudson from Christmas Spirit. I agree with everything he just said. We're in the same block. I took pictures all summer from 9 in the morning until 11 o'clock at night because we're open until 10:30. At my old store, we've moved. We used to be at the end of the second block. I'm in the middle now. I have 30-minute meters in front of me because of Browse About, which is okay because they're running in and getting their coffee, their paper, whatever it is. Rainy days, you have a 3-hour limit on rainy days. Rainy days used to be our busiest time. Rainy days are our worst days now because people aren't going to spend 3 hours and leave in the rain. They're just not going to do that. My parents live on Maryland Avenue, so I can get into the permit system with you with all of that, but that's not what they can deal with that. I don't think, I'm like with Steve, we have beachgoers. That's why we're here. We've been a beach town. We will always be a beach town. That's why people come to the beach. And if you're lucky enough to get people to come to your store, then you're lucky. You have to have a good product. You have to have good signage. We've had our worst summer I've been the manager for like 30 years. We've had our worst summer in 20 years. July was our worst summer in 20 years.
July was bad.
Also, the weather wasn't a help because we didn't have rainy days. We had 2 rainy days.
Wasn't July the hottest?
The
like,
hottest,
July?
yeah.
I think that rain is, we should like suspend
Yeah,
and
that's a
have
good
rain
idea.
days or fun days and get
Yeah.
people in and say, you know what, parking,
Yeah,
what do we call it? Not regular, anyway, no parking
Yeah.
tickets on rainy days,
Right.
and like get it broadcasted out there. We all do social media. I
Something for
totally
them.
agree. I mean, that's to put a limit on a rainy day is horrible.
it's horrible.
So you both have said it, and I'm interested in this. So and it's Jill, right?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I got. So I'm interested. So what we've heard from other businesses in the past was that we shouldn't cater to the beach traffic. That the beach, I'm just giving you that the beach traffic doesn't really do anything for them because they all bring their own food, they all bring their own stuff, and they go down to the beach and they spend all day at the beach. Then they get in their car and they leave. But I've heard you both now kind of say that, the beach
Yeah.
traffic people are important. So I'm helping.
But that's what, who's not coming to the beach? I mean, there are people coming to your store for that kind of stuff that you're doing. But why do people come to Rehoboth? They don't come to shop. They're coming to go to the beach. That's what they do. And I think when you
That's
come
not my
in,
experience. I mean,
I know, 'cause you're
people
in a
come-
clothing-
Well, but I know there's like such a variety
Right,
of different
it's
businesses
different in
here.
each
Not
block.
every one, we can't center on. But yeah, I mean, people do come, and they may not be. They may be here for a week, and this is their day to shop.
right,
They may be here for the
Right.
whole summer, and they're not tied to going to the beach for 18 hours in a day. And
Right.
so I think there's, like we've heard, the people that have come to the meetings prior, that the day trippers, the ones that come, the self-contained units that bring every single thing that they need. The t-shirt shops aren't getting anything. They used to sell suntan lotion and batteries and towels and chairs and umbrellas. They're not getting anything because the buses or their vans or their minivans, you see them, the caravans, they start at 8 o'clock in the morning and they go right up.
But that's because we live in a beach resort.
I understand.
That's the issue.
But are they helping your business?
They can certainly do the same thing. We have a mile-long beach.
I'm up
They
until,
don't have to be 200 yards, that 200 yards of beach. They
Right.
don't have to jam in there. They can spread out throughout.
I
And
get
then we can
people
all
in the morning.
enjoy. And the businesses
Yeah.
won't have their worst year in 20 years.
There are also so many beachgoers, if you will, who are coming from Bethany and Fenwick Island and even up from Ocean City, and they're coming here to shop and go to the restaurants. They're not coming to use the beach.
They
And
have-
they're the ones that are having trouble, and they are people that we need to also be attracting.
but the 3-hour limit, and I watched it all summer also. I videotaped it. I have pictures so I can send them all to you throughout the whole summer, all different times. I would see people park across the street, get their beach stuff, go to the beach, come back in their 3 hours and leave. They're not staying to get lunch. They're not staying to shop later. So it may be an hour or 2 hours would be, I don't know what the magic number is. I don't think any of us do because there's too many variables on how to figure out,
Well, they could
what's
just
the best way.
Pull the car around. If you say there's tons of spaces.
No,
Yeah.
apparently they can't.
You have to move
and
a
I was
different
not aware
zone.
of this until
Yeah.
our meeting, that
Yeah.
you have to move out of the zone.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
not just out of
Where-
that spot.
Okay,
We had a
and I don't-
doctor,
we'll change zones.
doctor from New Jersey came in, and he walked in and he said, this is with his wife, he said, "What's the deal with the parking?" I said, "Okay, you're like the 18th person today. What's your issue?" And he said, "Well, I parked on Baltimore Avenue. My wife was shopping at the jewelry store. And then we went to get lunch and we wanted to shop on the avenue. And I went to you could only have 3 hours." And then he said, "Okay, so I had to move my car and I moved up to the next spot that was available. I went to do it, the zone." He said they wouldn't let me renew it so he said, "You know what we did? We left."
And
So-
I'm not arguing with
Yeah.
the fact that there's still pieces of that need to get worked out.
But if he had been able to do it, he would have stayed, right?
If he had
So,
been,
so
yeah.
really, maybe we can fix the technology in that, because not everybody is gonna stick
But you
around
don't
for
want
another
them to
3.
have to move
I know,
and
but-
find the next spot, because that just pisses them off, so they leave. That's the whole point.
I know, but at the same time, it's a log jam the other way.
Right.
I still say we have 2 parking lots that have a grand total of about 150 spaces.
But how do you get them there? Because
Well, that's what we're talking.
everybody comes in on the avenue, they take the first spot that they see because
But
they know
that's
it's
what we're
hard.
trying to address, is to me, the solution to this that solves a lot of this is to get the turnover in front of your store so that the person who just wants to come to the Christmas tree shop and spend an hour or 2 has a space. But the signage and the programs and the apps and everything else that we can recommend say, you want to be here all day and shop and go to the, using your example, the jewelry store or whatever, here's the lot right there. That's the place you should go. Here's the lot. And I can pull up my app and I can see that there's,
Not everybody has that kind of a phone. That's another issue. A lot of older people don't have
Right.
phones that have
And
apps.
isn't it true, Jill? I imagine a lot of people who come in and buy a Christmas ornament from you had lunch at the Purple Parrot, and that's why they happen to be on your street.
Oh, there's,
You know,
yeah.
the restaurants are drawing them
And
to
we
you.
get people from Ocean City. We
Right.
get people that come up to our
Right.
store.
And if
'cause
they had
our
another hour or
stores-
2, they'd go a little further up the street and
I
spend
went-
some more, hopefully.
We're one of the oldest stores on the avenue.
I'm just saying
luckily.
that the restaurants are the draw, so I think we need to have time for them to both eat and shop,
Yeah.
and then leave.
Also, I don't know if this is an issue for you guys, but on Baltimore Avenue, on the west end, those 2 parking spaces should be removed. I hate to,
That is on our list. We made that recommendation and it just wasn't acted upon.
I took pictures of that too, because
Yeah,
I
I
sat,
have lots
you
of
can't
pictures.
get, well, there's 2 cars there, and then there's somebody that's coming west, and you're pulling, and there's a delivery truck there. There was nowhere to go. I sat there for 15 minutes
Oh, you mean
waiting to
on the
get,
very end?
on the very end by,
Actually, that's not on our
Mark
thing,
Scholl.
but that's.
yes, those 2 spots need
Just
to
because
go.
they're dangerous
Yeah.
for making those turns.
Yeah.
It's the Streets and Transportation Committee.
Yeah, yeah.
Another group.
Yeah.
You
I
want
just
to
wanted to add to that.
Microphone, Steve,
Okay.
sorry.
The,
Wave to the camera.
The beachgoer phenomenon, or whatever you want to call it, the day tripper. Now, I don't know if you were a child. I was, but when you would go with your parents to the beach and all that, and you were sitting there bored out of your skull, you would get up and do something. You would take your way, and like if you're going to be there for a family for 7 or 8 hours, or whatever the time period that you're going to be there for, you're going to get up at one point in time because you're not going to sit there and bake all day long. And you're going to go in the water for a while, and then you're going to look around and go, what can I do? You're going to walk down the street, and you're going to either go look at a store that you heard about online, or you saw on something, or some friend told you about. So I think that the fact that the beachgoer is the day tripper is not a customer is a misconception. Because I think that I find, and I ask my customers a lot, you here for the weekend, just to get into small talk conversation, and I hear a lot of times, I'm here for the day. And now, Gadgets is a different type store than your store, and then even than my other store, it's a totally different store. My other store is a guy that's coming there, like for Randy and for Trey, coming there specifically for that store. They would like to see a parking space there, and so there are definitely different types of customers throughout the city. But I think to keep on saying that the day tripper is not a customer is really a misconception.
Okay.
So I have Cool Topics next to me, which is probably the lowest of the low in terms of price, right? And then I've got a little bit higher up South Beach and all. Horrible years. And yet we have thousands of people. If you come down around 3, 4 o'clock, you would see that it looks like there's a concert at the old Spectrum going on. You have no idea, and they're not budging. They are sitting on the curbs with all their mountains of stuff, and they're taking over the bandstand before any music might be going on. The bandstand, they take that over, and they're waiting to leave. They're waiting for someone to get a car to come through and pick them up. They're waiting for the buses or whatever to come and get them. They're not bringing that much into, because if you see them, you see what they have: the 4 coolers for 8 people, the chairs, the mountains of stuff that they have. But don't look at me and say that my opinion is just, based solely on selling, $600-700 suits. It's not. The people selling the $8 iron-on T-shirts had the worst summer ever.
So the challenge is being able to deal with all the different issues and figure out the best compromise. And it really does seem to me that somehow 3 hours is not necessarily enough total, at least in all of these places. The big question is what would be helpful without making it a free-for-all again, which then really sort of blocks a lot of business.
Right, is it 3 hours extending to 2? Is it 4 hours, no extension? Is it, I don't know, but yeah, thanks. And so kind of to manage time here, I want to spend another 15 minutes on this topic, and then we do want to talk about permits a little bit. I don't know that we're going to resolve this today, but I want to hit permits also, and we always end in an hour and a half, so I just want to kind of
I have a question.
come up to the microphone, sir, and name.
Joe Kirk with Penny Lane Properties. We have the little lane with the cafe. People will come up and say where the old meters are, they're ashtrays. Who's responsible to clean them? And they burn, so,
Those are all slated to be removed.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they could not be removed prior to the summer.
Because of the park?
I guess just a time, and I don't know if it was a money issue, but they are absolutely going to be removed because they are also, it was confusing. A lot of people thought that there was free parking.
Yep.
Well, people think the 30-minute is free because of the way it's labeled, 30-minute parking. It doesn't say you still have to feed a meter.
I did see a couple
So
of
I think
stickers now.
they did add stickers to that.
I think the individual
to many of them. But
shops.
all of those 30-minute parking spaces are all going to be evaluated as to whether they should even exist, and what locations they should exist in, and under what circumstances.
Okay.
Or we'll recommend
But-
that they will.
Well,
We're
we'll recommend. I'm sorry. Yes, we'll recommend again.
We are a advisory recommendation board.
And the little machines, they need some kind of shade over it. Most people can't see what it says, and
We heard
they
that,
walk away
yeah.
and don't
That
finish.
was brought up. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. All right, so panel, group, whatever. How do you want to proceed with this? Do we want to think about how we want to make a recommendation on this so that, you know, again, we're going to finalize all this stuff hopefully next month, and we still have a lot to do. So, I mean, do we want to mull this over? Do we want to talk about it today? I mean,
Can I just say, I sort of kicked myself that we maybe didn't pay enough attention to Carol on July 22nd when she came and told us this. Because she did, it's in my notes. She came at that point and said, the main objection everybody has is the 3 hours. So we probably should have tackled it a little bit earlier. So I think that we need to make sure that we tackle it in sufficient time for the commissions to change it, do whatever they're going to do before the next season.
Well, I mean, we can begin to tackle it today. I know that's not popular, but I still believe we need some limit, that it can't be a 12-hour
Oh, yeah,
meter.
I agree.
And I don't know how confusing it is. You know, I wouldn't go beyond 4, because once you start getting to 4, now you're getting to almost
Doesn't matter.
no turnover anymore. You know, I could throw out 3 with 1 renewal of, you know, an hour, but that gets into complication.
Why are we making people even renew then? I don't see the,
I'm just
it's
throwing,
punishing
yeah,
them.
I'm just throwing options out there,
Okay.
but I still believe that you have to have something. As long as we have the sign program that says,
Right.
I'm coming to town, I wanna park all day because I'm going to the beach, I wanna take advantage of the things, and we then say, go here, go there, go to this lot, go to the lot behind you guys, go wherever. To me, none of these make sense unless we have
Right, absolutely.
that in place.
We didn't touch it, but the second biggest complaint at the meeting last week was that we have an unfriendly system. And I think making people go back, unfriendly people, unfriendly system in general, hard to understand. And I think if we keep making people go back and renew their 3 hours, we're just aggravating them. Why not just let them do this 6 hours, 4 hours, whatever it is in the first place?
If the sign program that was presented at Friday's commissioners meeting was in effect this past year, I don't think we'd be sitting here arguing.
Yeah, maybe not.
I don't think we would
And
have as
to make a
many.
radical change might be too soon. It didn't have a fair test.
I would agree.
So I would compromise, say to 4, but, you know, you got to do these things slowly. People are used to parking anywhere they wanted in Rehoboth for 40 years, and change is hard for anyone to accept.
The other thing, and I agree with you, is I would hate to throw it out at this point. I just think it's unfortunate that it didn't all get done under the recommendation. So, and Carol, I want to hear from you. The other piece that can help through all of this, and I don't know if anybody is here from Main Street, but, you know, back in my days when they called it the Downtown Improvement District, you know, call it whatever you want. Part of what their role was we had ambassadors on the street that were dressed in, I mean, I wasn't Downtown Improvement District, I was the parking, but our Downtown Improvement District had yellow shirts or green shirts or blue shirts or, you know, whatever color it was that said, you know, ask me anything or whatever, that walked up and down the street to help people. And I think that's a program that I would love to see, because I think that enhances all of these things. So if you have someone being an ambassador out there that says, oh, you know, I see you're coming to the beach, you know, you've got your stuff, whatever, guess what, right over there, you can be there for 10 or 12 hours. Let me help you with this meter, you know, all of those kinds of things. So I kind of want to throw that out as part of this also. But Carol, I saw your hand up.
Okay, so you've probably heard Carol Everhart of Rehoboth Dewey Chamber. I know you've heard me say this before, but if we don't simplify this, I think you're going to rerun the problem. So to me, based on the highest number of complaints, without a doubt, I can't extend. They're mad. We've never had this many complaints ever, both at the visitor center and at the admin building. It was just a major continual complaint, and you know, they leave saying, I'm not coming back. So that's not good for any of the businesses at any level or any category. So if we can find a way to extend, let them extend. I like the signage. I do agree that will help tremendously. I hope they color code it somehow, because people do not read. They remember symbols and they remember colors. So if green is long-term, so be it. If red is short-term, so be it. I like the app idea, but not everyone has the technology ability. Not all of our visitors are tech savvy.
Do you think extending addresses the issue as opposed to just having a max that is a longer max? Say, you know,
I think
say
they
4
want
or
to
5
extend.
hours.
I think they drive in. Half of your visitation is a day visitor.
Let's, let me ask you, extend how long? One time?
Well,
Because if you're gonna extend, then you may as well, okay,
to me, they want double the time. To me, they want double the time.
so that's really back to where we were.
Basically, yes. That's what they want because they're between 8 and 4, they're coming to the beach. When they come to the beach, they're not, sometimes they just leave immediately. They come in, they just spend a couple hours, 3 or 4 hours and leave. But most of them come in, then they want to go down to Funland, then they want to grab something to eat. They're here for, 4 to 6 hours. And in the evening, they have the opposite problem because then they go home. And now we have the 5:30 to 10 crowd, and they're here, they're having to wait for their meal, the reservation. If they don't have a reservation, wait for seating. And it's not enough for them. So they're just angry. And we've just never had, there's always complaints, there's always going to be complaints. We're never going to have, 4 million visitors is the best number we have annually, and keep them all happy. It's not going to happen. But to have this many complaints, it's just
Do you think there
unusual.
would have been less complaints if it had been better advertised and explained?
It was quick. So if you don't have that time to get it out there, I would hope that we somehow leave with letting them extend whatever that decision is. They can extend. And I would hope that there is some kind of signage with color code or symbol that's easy for them to know. If you do those 2 things, I didn't have any complaint about the cost. Zero. All of these complaints and not one person, I know they weren't all happy with it, but they didn't take the time to come in and complain. So, I think what Trey said about all the different levels of businesses is absolutely right. So fixing that in the area that we have is difficult. There's something else I wanted to say too. Hold on a second. Color code, cost, extend. The lag time. There's a technology issue there, so we do need to fix that. I had folks coming in and saying that they paid the meter and they ran in the store and they came back out and they had a ticket. I didn't put that together till it actually happened to me. But those are if we can find a way to extend, advertise it, make the decision early so it can be in all of the marketing, we can have it out there, and color code this issue. If you can only do the extend and not the signage this year, that would help. If you can do both, that's icing on the cake.
I would scan through my pictures.
Sorry, just because it's
Yeah.
recorded.
Jill from Christmas Spirit. I would love to send these pictures to you because it's just astounding. This was July 22nd at 12 o'clock. I'll show it to you. There's 2 cars parked in the median, the second block of my street, 2 cars at 12 o'clock on July 22nd.
Well, and so let me ask you something.
So
Do you
do you want
attribute?
empty spaces or you want full spaces? I want something that look like it's
Oh, I'm not
full.
arguing with you. I want full spaces, but do you attribute that to the 3 hour?
I don't know what to contribute it
Okay.
to, but because I've done it like this was at 3 o'clock. There's 4 cars, July 22nd. This is at nighttime. So I would love to send these somewhere so somebody can look at them because
And
It's-
Christie, what's the proper way to get them into the committee and on the record? Through?
To consent to be made, and I'll forward them on.
Okay,
and also
Thanks.
you dropped the meter time to 10 o'clock, 10 to 10, which I grew up on Maryland Avenue. It was always 10 to 10. And you did that for the businesses, for the bars that were open. I closed at 10, 10:30. You could park anywhere on the avenue. So that didn't really work for the restaurants, I don't think. I mean, empty. The avenue was empty, 10 o'clock at night.
I,
So where are those people that you know.
That might take a while, and I mean, I don't know that it was that well known initially, and did any of the restaurants or bars say, hey, the meters are over at 10? I think
Yeah, I
people
don't
still
know.
thought it was midnight.
No,
I
I'm
don't
just
know.
putting that, because that's also, my pictures at 10 o'clock, the avenue is completely empty.
Joe, I also have a lot of pictures from the adjunct streets, Delaware Avenue and the like, all day long that were fairly empty on beautiful days when there wasn't a single space going all the way out 5 blocks on Rehoboth Avenue. And that is partly because of the lack of signage to let people know you can park Ocean Block
Right.
or even the second block by going over 2 streets.
But how are you gonna do the signage? I mean, I get the signage, I think that's great, but everyone comes in on the avenue, correct?
Exactly.
So you're gonna have so many signs, people are gonna be like,
No,
what
Actually,
do
if you
do?"
haven't seen the program, it really is impressive.
Really?
I
Yeah,
thought
it's
what
very
you thought
impressive.
until I saw the program.
Yeah, well, maybe
Yeah.
you should put that out for the businesses to see, because really, when you come,
It's on the portal.
And it's gonna replace the existing signs. Right down to the street signs are going, and there'll be new street signs. So everything falls together like a puzzle.
because nobody comes in and goes, oh, let's go to the right, everybody goes down the avenue.
But that's what we're trying to do, is get them to go to the right and to the left for longer term.
This whole program was really very interesting. I mean, it gets rid of a lot of the mishmash of signs that we have coming
Right.
in to try and centralize, the themes. And they were talking about using the same sorts of visuals. And I agree that I think we really need to have color coding, but the expert said color coding is not necessarily the panacea we think it is. I mean, you see it at airports and that sort of thing, and you
Right.
know what zone to be going to because of that. But
But then how are the residents gonna feel about all of that flow going that way?
well, a lot of it's being directed to the existing meters that are there. I mean, these empty parking lots. I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely, the lot
Behind you guys, yeah.
is empty all day long. It's crazy, and it's only $2 an hour, and it's a 12-hour limit. It's because people just don't know. So a lot of this really is communication.
So who do I send this?
Send them to Ann, you can get her,
Okay,
A comment that you said, how will the residents feel about pushing more people in there? Speaking from somebody who gets a lot of employees and people shopping, parking near us, we've lived with that for years and it's great. We object to the long-term parking, people who leave their cars for 7 to 10 days. That's the objection residents have.
Exactly.
Not cars that move.
The people are staying in Dewey and park here because it's
Yes,
cheaper.
and
my parents live on Maryland Avenue, so I mean,
so,
I
no,
wish you
that's-
would have come, because
that's
she could have
not an
dealt with the
issue.
permit issue, but, yeah.
Kelly, did you have?
yeah, and then, because I want to spend just a couple more minutes, and then you guys help me decide whether we want to delay permits or talk about this. It's okay.
Hi, my name is Yolanda Pineda. I'm from Mariachi. And like you guys put in all this time and the effort to make the town special. Well, the town is a very special. That's why people come to town. And we have here all kind of communities and we connect and love each other. I have many customers that leave with the plates on the table. And I said to myself, but why did they leave with it? Didn't pick up the plates from the table? Because they gotta go, they meter. Because to me, when they come, they had to be, the table had to clean, and I have a couple of issues like that. There is not many options to park. And I'm blessed because I have that land, and I pay a lot of money for that land. And I joke around with my guests, and I say, with that lot come for sale, I'll be begging in the street to buy that lot. But the 3 meters, the 3 hours time, I think is an issue for, not for the retail, but for the restaurants. How can we commit, or how can we have a better solution? Because this is a beach town, and people come for the beach, and it's true. And for those people that come and have the coolers, and I don't know how percentage of how many people a day do that. People come here for the beach to go eat, to go shop, to, spend the day, and the people that are in the hotels, they don't use their cars, they walk. And there is many, many people that are in the hotels. That's how we survive. I don't think we survive for the daytime trippers. I think we survive for the people that are in the hotels. And, like Amazon is there, so it's just, we all suffer. The retail suffer because they shop online. The restaurants suffer because people are in Airbnb or all those things. So how can we find a solution? I also don't know.
But I think you've hit on something, not, and this is a totally different thing, but
Yeah.
we've got how many, 30, 40,000 people weekly that rent and stay in town? What's the number?
Well, you have 4 million visitors a year.
And it seems to me that through the chamber and the downtown merchant group and the city capitalizing on that audience that's already here, that is either brought their car in and parked because they're staying at a hotel or at a house or whatever, is also part of how we can get through some of these challenges, because you've got to capture the audience. And frankly, if I drive into town and I'm staying here for a week, I do not want to go out in that highway. I live here, I don't want to go out in that highway. So, I'm walking everywhere, and so that's part of it too, is how can we capture that group on top of everything else?
Yeah, and we do enjoy the off season. Believe me, like in September, if you guys, I'm going to be short. If off meter Monday less meter, we as a restaurants, we get together too. How can we bring the people in? But if the rules and regulations are, how to implement more rules and regulations, our work is not good. We do Monday, meterless Monday. What do we do? And it was great. I mean, we felt it was good. We do our work, but it's just more rules and regulation, the meters until the end of the September. So to capture that shoulder of this summer to survive year round, so
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So,
Can we get Kelly? She's gonna-
yeah, I'm sorry.
Kelly from Nicola Pizza. I promise I won't bully anyone. I probably just want to reiterate a couple things that have already been said, but I did say it also at the meeting last week. My thing, and I think that a lot of us down here with the 3 hours, is that I don't want to force the person to choose. I want them to come down to Rehoboth to do all of it. Like, I appreciated that you said dinner and a show, because I want them to go to clear space and eat dinner downtown, not on the highway. And how you said you don't go out on the highway people don't come downtown Rehoboth. And so that's sort of, what we need to do. I do think I understand. I totally agree that signage is a key aspect to what reason it didn't work. But I think sort of 3 hours plus one time extended to another 3 hours possible, because maybe when they go to do it, it could alert them then, because they may have missed all the signs coming in. It may say, you're in a 3-hour zone. You will be permitted to extend once. Then they may choose, you know what, I don't want to park here. Let me go somewhere else and park, because they know it. Instead of after the fact, then they know it. And then they do leave town. My friends leave, my family leaves, people I don't know, they leave. They don't extend, they don't find a different zone, they just leave. And that's what I want to prevent. I hope that's what everyone here wants to prevent. I hope that's what the commissioners want to prevent. I don't want empty spaces, I want full spaces. Also, I'll just tell a little story real quick. In 2010, Nicola Pizza opened. Nicola's on the Avenue, Rehoboth Avenue. But in 1971, Nicola Pizza was open on 8 North First Street. I went to work. I worked for years, 20 years, well, 25 years now, but I worked forever at the original one. I moved over to the new one when it opened. I was amazed the first year, second year, third year of people that continued said, your pizza is really good. I wish you guys the best. I hope you guys are here next season. It's so difficult to stay in business, because they had zero clue that we were literally around the corner since 1971. That's the amount of people that don't get off of Rehoboth Avenue. And I think it's naive of us to believe that we can control that. We can put signs in to hopefully do that. But the point is still that there are a lot of people that go on vacation, and they don't even make one right turn or one left turn off of the main block. I'm the strange person. I go on vacation. I want to find the off the beaten path places, but there are so many people that don't. I also can't control a day tripper. I want the day tripper to come and I want them to do all of it as well. But for me to like sit here and think that I can control someone to come in and just shop, just go to the beach, just go to a restaurant by putting a sign up, I think that's a little naive.
Wouldn't it be great if we had them park a block away and walk by your store for the first time?
It'd be great. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I can tell you right now, I know from work, I work at both of them. Today, I'll be back and forth between the two. When there's parking available on Rehoboth Avenue, we're busy in the avenue. When there's parking not available on Rehoboth Avenue, guess what? The First Street location's way busier. I can tell you that from working there for so long. But people don't necessarily do it. They'll drive around Rehoboth Avenue and then they'll leave if they don't find a space. It's not right. I mean, trust me, I get it.
But that's why we do need the signage. because
Correct.
we-
I
you know,
agree.
Obviously, there are not enough spaces on Rehoboth Avenue for all the business even. much less
Correct.
everything
Right.
else.
And that's why I do think maybe if it was an interactive app when they did park and went to do it, if it said, hey, you're only going to be here for 3 hours, you're not going to be able to extend, or you are going to be able to extend, that may help. They may then decide, let me go somewhere else. Let me find the alternative instead of just parking and then leaving.
I definitely think that a lot of the anger came from the fact that people didn't realize they were not going to be able to extend until the 3 hours was up.
And then,
And
and
that
true,
was
and
part
like
of
Carol
the-
said, they come to her, they walk in the stores, and they walk in Christmas spirit, and they're frustrated, and they tell us, we were going to get another pitch of beer, we're leaving. And same thing. We were going to look longer at shirts or whatever, So and I do appreciate what you all do. And, it isn't one answer for everyone. So, we all take that into consideration. Thank you.
So, committee, thank you. We have 25 minutes. Do we want to continue on this topic and delay permits until the next meeting?
Does anybody here care about permits? That's what I thought. Oh, one person.
Well, wait, before you address it, just let me hear consensus. I mean, we've heard a lot of things. Do we want to, we're running into the need to make these recommendations to the commissioners by the end of October or November's meeting. So we can put a couple extra meetings in.
Which we may need to do. I kind of like to touch on permits because that may influence some of the things with meters. As we've always said, they're all interactive. If we could just spend a few minutes on that.
Trey?
Is there any data that we need to come to a conclusion? I mean, we hear from a certain amount. I mean, is there anything else that we need for the meters and the extension?
We
and all that stuff?
didn't get the
meters.
income information, which would be interesting to see.
We don't have the meter income information yet. Sharon, you're getting that to us at some point, right? The meter revenue?
You mean the
Oh, you have it?
garage, or the the existing?
Okay, if you're driving down the street,
Sorry.
Joe from Penny Lane, so you're driving in and it says park on your left, but when you get there, there's a mailbox and it doesn't say pull in the parking lot. You get to the traffic light, you can't turn left. If you don't realize in front of the Purple Parrot, there's a space to make a U-turn and clog up the traffic, and then maybe the police will yell at you for waiting, probably. But if you go to the next block, you can't turn left either. There's no reason why we can't make left turns. Dewey does it all the time. That's a whole different thing, but think about the signage for the parking lot.
Whole different committee, but the signage for the parking lot is paramount, absolutely.
Yeah,
And directional.
right,
how
so
to get there.
if we wanted people to get to the parking lot, it would tie into parking again. And if, from being in other towns, if you get a $30 ticket, it's still cheaper to stay at the beach all day than pay for 6 people to go to the beach in other towns.
Well, that's a different story. Okay, so here's what I think we should do. I think we should talk a little bit about permits, but I think we should have our next meeting in a couple weeks if we can, and resolve these, because I don't think we can, and we have a hard stop in 20 minutes. So why don't we kick permits around a little bit, then come up with our next meeting date in the next couple weeks and try and.
I mean, I'd like to hear from more businesses. I'd like, as far as that's concerned. I appreciate all those that are vocal and want. I mean, this is what you're exercising your right, which is I'm all for that. That's why I ended up here. I think we need to hear from more. And
How do we get that,
I
you
don't know.
think?
Can we, through Main Street or through the chamber, get I mean, we got 200 and some businesses here. We need to hear from at least 100, don't you think?
I'm Dan from Rehoboth Main Street, and I'm gonna.
Oh, there you are.
And I'm gonna
Sorry,
speak
I just
on-
threw you under the bus.
That's all
didn't I?
right. I just, speaking on the behalf of the Spice and Tea Shop, okay, since I left there recently, and I speak for Joy, is that they had the best year they ever had, okay? The best summer they ever had, the worst July they ever had, okay? Because of the weather. But then when I'm hearing, I'm out and about, then I'm switching to my new position now, Dan from Rehoboth Main Street, is that I'm hearing from a lot of merchants, they had the worst summer. And I think, again, it's the zones, you know? So it's a back and forth. So I think we should up the hours, you know, to extend the hours like you talked about. I don't have the answer for what hour, but I think Spice and Tea Shop did really well because of the 3 hour, you know, or their location near the boardwalk or that zone. Because I can tell you, they just won another award, you know, for being #1. So, but the business I'm hearing from the restaurants and everything is because not extending time. So this is giving you my feedback. But as the executive director, I like what you said. I think we need more friendly. I want to promote a happy town, a welcoming town, which I think we're losing because of people getting tickets and, you know, not knowing what to do. I like your idea of having someone out there greeting, helping them. People can talk to them. It is the best idea ever because it makes us more welcoming and more friendly. And we talked about the coat, you know, having it painted or different colors. The person that's at this block could be that color, like you said, different colors, you know. And I think too, we also need to be somebody that's out there seeing somebody park taking up 2 parking spots. That person can help out. You
Nicely.
know? Nicely. So if I come up here for anything, is that we need to be more of a welcoming town. And I love your idea. So please, please talk about that. Having, you know, I don't know if it's in the budget to have people out there to guide and help, but if we have a more friendlier town, you know, that's all I have.
I mean,
So-
I'd like to hear from more.
Yeah,
Because
how-
I don't want my opinion. I don't want just my opinion, just a few people here. I would like to hear those that don't
Is
have
there
a
a
problem.
I mean, what's the best way, Carol, to approach it? Is it a survey that we can ask the businesses without, you know, the qualifier though, it can't just be, did you like it or didn't you? Because the answer is gonna be skewed. The qualifier could be, if we do X, Y, and Z, or, you know, did it work? And if we did X, Y, and Z, would that make it better? You know, signs, things like that.
Sounds like what you're looking for is a majority on extending or not, a majority on would the signage solve most of this problem or not. So I would keep the survey simple. It's something that, you know, there's 2 ways to do this. We can do this electronically, you know, you can just use monkey survey or something, but, or we can have someone actually go around. I like the idea of, if Main Street would like to assist in this, I could work with them with this. But I think it would be a really good idea to personally go around.
I think it's huge because it's such a big issue that when we make a presentation to the commissioners, I think we want to be able to say, you know, we had this, we had that, we surveyed whatever, and here are the results, and then let them, based on the results, make that final decision.
I don't want to make the decision by myself. I mean, I don't want to have all that.
Is
come
that
down to
something
me.
that,
That's something we can do. I think, you know, if you have, our last count was 330 business fronts. Now, they might be lawyers or mortgages or that type.
Well,
But-
they have parking issues
That's
too.
right, that's
and
right.
They have more 30-minute needs than possibly.
I agree. But I think what you would be looking for is 70% or 60% of this number agreed with extending. And then do you want to know, this is, the criteria is going to be really important. Do you want to know they agree with extending it another 3 hours at a higher rate, or you just agree with extending it one time? I'd keep it simple.
so I'm gonna, can someone on the committee, and the only reason I'm saying that is I'm really tied up the next week because of these things, but can someone put the 5 questions or the questions together that we could then send to them? Like, work on a draft, send it to the 5 of us real quick and say, yeah, these are the 5 questions, and see if we can't get something out?
Maybe Jess and I would be the best ones because we don't have a business, you know?
I mean, you know, the question,
There you go.
you know, the questions we're asking is, you know, did the 3 hour work for you or not? That's the first question. Then the second is, are you in favor of extending it? What about if they had a sign program that puts you, you know, everything we just talked about, all the different qualifiers?
Can we come to your office, Carol, the two of us sometime
Absolutely.
and do
Yep,
that?
we can
Would you
set
guys,
that up.
that would be great.
We'll get with you afterwards and
Okay,
see
great.
what suits your schedule. Is that okay, Jen?
Carol, who doesn't that?
Didn't your last meeting, you had quite a few businesses there?
Um,
Fred was saying. 42. How about 42?
Well, that was at, the task force
Right,
meeting, yeah.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, that was
we-
pretty good. 42 was pretty good. I mean, it's better than what's here this morning, but.
Right, though I would say, because I spoke to a number afterwards, only one side spoke up. There were other people there who felt differently, who did not speak up.
And so we just want to make sure that we're not saying every single person there, because sitting up front, I was watching, and I had at least 4 or 5 people shaking their heads saying, no, that we're in favor of it. So they didn't speak up. So I think the best solution for us is to get these 4 or 5 very simple questions, not get it too complicated, get it out, find out and the input, and then let us digest it and make that as the presentation. And then I would encourage everybody to answer. You had your hand up. I appreciate if you guys would work on that.
Sure.
Yeah, that's.
Maybe Dan could join us, the four
For
of
those
us.
of you who don't know who I am, I'm Bob from the coffee mill. One of the things I want to just point out is the committee would consider in their recommendation to the commissioners, perception is reality. Bottom line. First thing you hit on, some very important things were brought up that I think are important for the committee's recommendation. Number one, what's the first thing you see when you drive into Rehoboth Beach? A blue umbrella that people really have no clue what that is. The signage, I changed the name of that parking enforcement on the side of that car and call it ambassador. You hit the nail on the head because other communities call them parking ambassador. There's a big word about the word welcoming and unwelcome. When you go out on Baltimore Avenue and you see that little Ford Escort going up and down, up and down, up and down, what is it? I'm wondering if I'm not in a police state in 1942. I mean, seriously, it's just wrong. Put the word ambassador, parking ambassador on the side of that car, that they're not just there to be handing out the paperwork, they're there to assist the community. There's a big difference in welcome and not welcome. There's a big difference in someone saying, what do you want and how can I help you? And that's all I want to say. You touched on a couple of very important things. That parking car saying enforcement on it, to me, is just a turn off, a negative to anybody coming in Rehoboth Beach. And the fact that all summer long, 2 blocks, up and down, up and down, up and down. People are making fun of it. They go, are they counting parking spaces? Are they issuing tickets? What are they doing? The car goes up and down. And the other problem with that car, I want to point out, when that car stops, and it stops about every 20 feet, the people behind on the street have to go around it. There's kids with bicycles, moms with bicycles with surreys, and babies now are coming the opposite way and have a car coming at them. I mean, it's bad enough when we have our stores, of course, getting deliveries is a traffic slowdown. I think what we need to do is, if you take a look back, and this isn't your problem, but you know, from the eviction of the baby Jesus right on down, we have a PR problem here. We need to get into the idea of, you know what, it's all for one and we're all here to welcome people to come here. And it doesn't matter whether you're selling a $2 cup of coffee or a $300 suit or the guy that's selling t-shirts. We're all in the same boat together. Or I have people this year that told me they've rented a house for 15 years and not coming back because Rehoboth's gotten too tough. It's too tough here. That's all you see, the parking car and all these different things. I think we need to really take a step back and say, what are we trying to do? You have some very good ideas as far as the issue with the parking, and I can concur with some of those. We don't always agree. But I think really the bottom line needs to be starting with the signage. You look at the sign, let's take the one across from Nicole's, the 3-hour. It doesn't say that you have to move the car. People go out, go to put money in. That's when they find out, oh, we're not allowed to re-up. The sign doesn't say you must move your car after 3 hours. The sign doesn't say that.
3-hour maximum.
And then the stanchions, I get it. From a city management standpoint, I can fully understand. For you to take those poles out, you don't know how much concrete was pulled in them when you first put them in. When you yank them out of there, you may end up with some busted sidewalks and having to do some extra stuff that, quote, aren't in the plan. And that's the way things always go. And you know, when you start one thing, you find out you have a bigger problem. The stanchions coming out, obviously, that's a no-brainer. We did have people come in that got tickets that were complaining. I thought you didn't have meters. And I'm like, well, yeah, we have meters. It's up the street. And the other problem with it up the street is The kiosk is here. If you pass the kiosk, you look back, there's no sign. They're only one-sided. These are all things that we can all work together and get corrected, you know? But like I said, one of the recommendations I would be is get the word enforcement out of there. Because when I say enforcement, what does that mean to you? It puts you immediately in an adversarial position. Say the word ambassador, that umbrella should say parking ambassadors. That people are gonna pull in there. Why? Because they want information. They're happy, they're coming to the beach. And then you can hand them out that information and tell them you want a day pass. When you buy that day pass, this is where you park in the day pass zone. Not on Rehoboth Avenue, the day pass zone. I just wanted to bring
They
that
could
up.
come in and get the information of,
Yeah, but
and
call
ask
it
the
an
question,
ambassador.
I want to park here, and said, what do you want to do?
All right, I'll let you go. All right.
There's a seat down here.
Thank you very much. No.
And I'm gonna, I will say this before we lose the audience, we are looking for new members, so if anybody is interested.
Thank you anyway for your time.
Are you
So-
running for commissioner?
So let me address a couple things in the couple minutes. Enforcement is never easy, trust me. I did it for a lot of years and it's never popular. We don't pretend to try and tell the city how to operate. You know, there's a professional city manager and I think she does a very good job. In the industry, it has been changed to parking control. That's one of the names, there's a lot of different ones, but we took enforcement out of it years ago just because of a PR, and it may be something that the city considers. At the end of the day, whether it's a speeding ticket, a parking ticket, whatever, it's never popular to enforce laws that are on the books, and the laws are on the books for a reason. So, don't always, shoot the messenger, because a lot of times it's just one of those things that has to happen. That doesn't mean it can't be done in a positive way. And, I've never, I can't even believe I'm saying this, I've never gotten a ticket in the city, so I can't tell you whether I experienced it positive, negative, or whatever. But, just temper the fact that enforcement is never easy. And so that's always a tough position to be in when you have to do any of those things.
It seems like we have, every point, there's one commonality, and that's communication from the city and public relations. The headlines that was in the Cape Gazette could not have been more off target, but on a bad way. It'd be one thing if it was wrong and it was a positive spin, it was wrong, and it was just, every issue that we're dealing with, it's like everything comes out. Oh, that should have been communicated better. That should have been communicated better. Should have been. When is that ever gonna get fixed?
Well, I'm going to say this, because then I want to plan our next meeting. And I just want to say that people from the park department, Sharon, city manager, has been at almost every one of these meetings. So I can't imagine that they haven't heard a lot of these things. And those are the kinds of things that I think we will continue to recommend and, hopefully will get implemented. Some of that is even challenged because it has to come from the commissioners too. So, we had Tony Sharp for a long time, attended our meetings. We haven't had a commissioner since, I shouldn't say that.
Stan's come a couple times.
Stan has come some, but
Dick came a couple.
so there's layers of things that have to happen here, and that's not an excuse. I'm simply mentioning it. So, having said that, trying to keep us to the time, our next meeting, let's set it, we will hopefully get the survey in and out before then, so we'll give it like 3 or 4 weeks to get that done.
You can hand deliver it in an afternoon, for heaven's sake.
Okay, whatever, let's look at the thing, and we'll address that and permits and things. So if you could open up your magic calendars. I need to wait probably until the week of the 14th, which, would that give you guys, that's like
October?
of October. Does that give you enough time?
I gotta get past.
Carol? Okay, week of the 21st?
Open.
On the 21st, I could do it.
Well, we're talking about getting the survey done.
Tough month.
See which, right?
Let's see which.
Sidewalk sale for me early.
Do the calendar, Van?
I think you need at least 6 weeks. I can't imagine getting to everybody personally.
So do we want to have a
We'll have
meeting?
some volunteers, though, I'm sure. I know these two guys will pull people together.
We're here sitting here right now taking names.
No, we don't need, we're not asking the chamber to do anything other than help us put the survey together.
And give us a
That's
list
it.
of
We'll
people to
take
give
it
it
from
to.
there.
Who's gonna pick the survey up? That's probably the hardest part about it.
I thought we were just doing 4 or 5 questions.
Right.
Yeah, it's only-
But is it
We're
gonna, I thought we were
No,
doing it
no,
through
it's 4 or
Survey
5
Monkey.
questions.
You're talking about going door to door?
You have to do one or the other. I can do SurveyMonkey, but getting the responses and the numbers that you have a high enough percentage that you're comfortable, I don't know that we get that electronically. We can put it out there first. You wanna do that?
You need block managers, like somebody from each block, first block, second block, third block.
Then it's revisiting the business, because a lot of the business doesn't have the manager sometimes with the owner.
Boy, I think we should try it electronically first
Okay, that's right.
and see
Yeah.
what happens.
Okay, I'm for that. Now we're good.
Okay.
Now we're
And only, I'm not trying to avoid that, but to your point, we
I
could
can
spend
work
the
with
whole
Dan.
winter.
And he can help us find people within the blocks.
Encourage them to respond.
Yeah, we need to get it done.
And we don't have a lot of time to make the recommendation.
Right.
And I do have probably 80%, 82% of the downtown businesses in email.
Okay.
Okay.
That can be
Good.
utilized too.
And if it comes from you, I think they'll pay attention to it.
I hope so.
All right, so having said that, when do you think you could, if these guys get the questions to you, when could you have the survey in and back?
I think we can do that the week of the 14th of October.
Okay, and then, Ann, what's the calendar look like on, what day of the week is this? Thursday.
This is a Monday.
Columbus Day
No, this
will be
is Thursday.
closed, I bet, right?
What do you guys look at? I'm actually pretty open on that.
I can do Tuesday, Thursday.
Tuesday's the 15th, Thursday would be the 17th.
Tuesday would be.
Tuesday the 15th?
Tuesday,
There's a
15th.
bandstand meeting.
I know that's always bad for you, Randy.
What
No,
time?
no, no, I can make that
Bandstand
work.
meeting on the 15th at 9:30 according to my calendar.
That would be here. We could do it at 1.
Do you have, Ann?
Same thing she does.
Do we have something in the, can we do the afternoon?
You can, afternoon is open.
If we did it like at 4, then we could stay late, nobody would be after us.
I can't do 4 because
Oh,
I've
you
got
can't
an
do
evening meeting. About, say, 1 o'clock?
1?
Does Thursday work for us, or can we do Thursday morning?
Yeah, how about Thursday? The 17th, is that in the morning? Because
Thursday's better. Thursday morning?
let's do
I'm
Thursday.
out of town, but that's neither here nor there. My work
Are
will
you
be,
here on Tuesday?
yes,
So let's do Tuesday.
my
Let's
work
do-
will be done.
Yeah, I can't on Wednesday, so Tuesday the 15th?
Okay, so after all this talk, what are we?
Tuesday the 15th.
15th at 1
Tuesday
PM.
the 15th at 1 PM?
It's open.
All right,
Okay, can you book us in there, Ann?
got it. Thank you.
I know that doesn't work for a lot of the businesses, and thank you very much for everybody coming. This is, what did I just say before I do this? Tuesday, October 15th at 1, right? Okay, great.
Also, real quick, the Park Mobile, I don't know how, with a 5 or 6 minute lapse, that also has to be.
I have that down here. All right, so the next meeting, we will try and take that questionnaire, wrap this up, and spend time on permits.
Can the extension of the resident passes be included in that survey?
No, I don't want to complicate it at this
Okay.
point, if you don't mind. We want to get this responded, and then if we complicate it, make it too big, you'll get people
You
glazed
mean the
over.
permits going later?
Yeah,
If we did that, we'd have to include all the homeowners in,
I know, right?
you know,
Yeah, it
right?
gets-
So we'd like
Let's
to
just-
keep this business
try and
oriented, yeah.
Okay, anybody else? And thank you, listen, seriously, appreciate input, appreciate people coming. We've been kind of working in a vacuum. Not joking, I want to tell you, we're looking for some more members, so anybody wants to be here, let me know, I'm appointing. Well,
It's
I
not
recommend and
You only
commissioners
lose a few
appoint.
friends, not all of them.
Yeah. Hey, it's not bad, I've done it my whole life, I've got 3 friends.
Pays low, but great benefits.
Say something for a while.
Okay, I just wanted to, I'm Dale Owens from the Crosswinds Motel, I'm also on the board of the chamber. And I've been on and off that committee twice before, so I understand what you're going through. But I think one of the things we have to really look at as well, though, is the 30-minute spots.
Absolutely.
Because people will come to us, a 90 to 30-minute spot, we give them one, and they're all over the place. And that's something you might want to consolidate them on Rehoboth Avenue, just make them 3-hour
It,
spots.
it is one of our recommendations to
I mean,
come up
the
with
rest go.
criteria to put them in, criteria to take them out, and evaluate all of them. And we had made that recommendation. I know the city was gonna be working on that.
Because you're kind of duplicating your efforts to a certain degree, because by doing it on the entire bit of Rehoboth Avenue, I understand you're trying to get turnover, but we also did that with the 30-minute spots to get turnover and convenience. So maybe the 30-minute spots are the answer to your question. Just make them 2 hours or 3 hours or 1 hour and make everything else on the move.
That's certainly a possibility.
And paint them a different color.
Well, that's also in our
I
recommendation.
disagree with the expert. I think
Balloons.
things should be color coded.
We did too.
Right,
And then businesses can request the 3-hour spot in front of their store, maybe, or.
Right,
Like the 30-minute one.
we need to come up with a whole, way of.
Or something that like, you can drive over and it goes down, but before you pull in, it says, 30-minute,
I mean, I think you made them green or something like that.
We always had them painted red,
Yeah, something.
whatever. Okay, we're out of order at this point because nobody's been at the microphone, sorry. Adjourned, thank you.
You know,